Business Association, as Kim stated, the Friday Fest is going to be going on, formerly known as the Third Thursday event. Was very popular last year. The first event will be on May the 2nd. And Bill, you want to talk a little bit about it?
I can.
Sure.
Do I need to? Okay.
If you would, that would be awesome.
Sure. So as a business association, we made a decision of filtering Rosemary to amend or adapt the Third Thursday Festival to being Friday Fest. The only reason we're not doing it as a first Friday is because first Friday of July falls on July 4th. And then Brickhouse is away on vacation for the first Friday in August. So to brand it Friday Fest works, so the first Friday of May, first Friday of June, second Friday of each July and August, and then first Friday of September. The hope and idea is that people typically, hopefully, when they go down the shore, are leaving on Thursday anyway, and then by moving it to Friday, we give ourselves the opportunity maybe to pull from additional communities, not just Ridley Park, to show them what we have here. Because if you're not down the shore, and you're around on Friday, you're kind of looking for something fun and nice to do outside. And maybe more people will come out because they won't have to wake up early the next day. That's the entire idea behind it. We have a lot of engagement right now from a vendor standpoint. We're focusing on having more food vendors available so that nobody really needs to wait for something to eat at any moment in time. And we kind of divvied up the responsibilities for this festival to a lot of different members. That's the entirety of the idea for Friday Fest. I just wanted something for the community again. I thought that last year worked out really well. And then just because you mentioned Ridley Park Athletic Club.
Yep.
So if I may, I was just met with Ridley Park Athletic Club, and Ridley Park Athletic Club just decided I submitted an idea to run a youth track club, and they voted that in to Ridley Park Athletic Club, and that'll run for about 4 months, and I'll be coaching that. So if anybody around has kids that like to run as much as mine, please look out for that as well. So,
When's that going to start?
yes.
When is it going to start?
The track club looks to begin in May. We'll utilize the middle school track for the month of May, and then we'll move to the high school for the subsequent because of the construction that's slated to occur on the middle school grounds. So it'll be twice a week, and yeah, we'll kind of a lot of different age groups, and then we'll find out what your kid or any children wants to do, and then we'll slot them, and then I'll coach them my 10 years of coaching in high school and college.
Can I?
Quick question, Phil.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
The dates that we have down for the event are May 2nd, June 6th, July 4th, August 1st, and September 5th. Are they incorrect?
Yeah, so those dates would be incorrect. So on the block party permit that everyone signed, we took our rain date of 1 week following. So we're just going to, upon approval, elect to utilize the rain date for July
For the July
and August
Okay.
events. And if it rains on the date that we're using, then we just unfortunately lose that one.
Yeah, my concern is that that was the holiday.
Yeah, I just, it was going to, in our heads, it was going to be a fun time, but then at the same time, why?
It's a, yeah.
Like, it just felt like it was going to be foolish. So that's why we're changing the July date to the following Friday. And then the August date is to accommodate Brickhouse exposure. We think they're just such a strong anchor, so we want them to be involved.
One question and a statement. What are the times for that event?
The times on the permit are from 5 to 10 with a no parking enforcement beginning 4 p.m. to allow for vendor load-in and setup. We've had some questions about from vendors that have stayed for the entirety of the engagement. If anybody wants to roll, they have to roll, but they just can't get off the street because that would be very unsafe. So
It's just Hinkley Avenue.
just think we have the same footprint that we did last year.
Okay, cool. And then the second one is for the track club. Awesome. That's great. If you have any information that you want us to
116 traffic citations, brings up to 49. No non-traffic citations were issued this month. One so far this year. Parking, 149 citations, 242 total. Total citations issued, 156, 116 for the year. 5 traffic warnings this month, bringing us up to 28 for the year, and parking tickets, 140 for the month of March, bringing us up to 366 total year.
Thank you. You can leave that there. Mike Eckert, Chief of the Fire Department. And Mike, you can provide a little bit more information about EMS services to follow up.
Sure. So I'll start with the fire report. For March 2025, there were 41 calls for the month. Company was in service for 18 hours and 25 minutes. Total staff hours were 62 hours and 14 minutes, with cumulative firefighters responding at 114. The fire department continues to be busy. To put it in perspective, we had 123 calls through the end of March. It took us through the end of May to get to that last year. So if this continues to run the way it's been running, we'll exceed 500 calls this year, which is unprecedented in all the years I've been here. So hopefully it'll start to settle down. EMS, as everybody knows, Crozier Health is teetering on the brink of something. We don't know exactly what it is at this point in time, but they are the largest EMS provider in the county. There's concern that if Crozier ceases to exist, there will be a significant drop in ALS services in the county. It's been in the paper. Upper Darby just contracted with a private company to provide ALS services in their jurisdiction. The boroughs along the Chester Pike Corridor, Tenneco Township, Stone, Prospect, Norwood, Glen Olden, and Ridley Park have been meeting to try to come up with a solution of what to do. Unfortunately, it won't be free. The services that Crozier's been providing were free to the municipalities, but that will not exist in the future state. What it looks like, we don't know at this point in time. There's still negotiations going on, and council will have to take action at some point in time on the plan. So.
Thank you. Moving on, Board of Health, they met last month, and we are in the current situation where we are in search of a new health officer. Matt Verdi, who was our health officer for about a year and a half now, has decided that, to move on to other ventures. So we are in the process of researching and getting someone in that place so that we can make sure that we don't miss anything. Emergency management did not meet, and civil service, we haven't discussed yet if we're moving forward with testing so that we can have an active list. Because we did hire Robert Keum, who we swore in. So, something that I'll circle back with the Civil Service Commission and see, what their plans are. But that is all from my report.
All right, thank you very much. I would make a motion to accept Council Valesio's report. Council McGinley, second Council Collins. Comments or questions? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, we will end these council reports and we'll go to the manager.
Mr. President, bids are being accepted for the 2025 road program. Streets that are being considered are from Ward to Free to Harrison, and then Ward from Harrison to Ridley. The work for the bridges moving into phase 2 of the traffic control plan. It's going to be on the north side beginning May 5th and lasting until the end of October. Phase 1 traffic control plan for the bridge will remain in effect as well. Closure will include the intersection of West Ridley Avenue and Ward Avenue, extending a few properties along West Ridley Avenue from each side of Ward, and along Ward from West Ridley to Cresswell Street, right at the library. I requested that the contractor to well as the visitors, and to make sure each one had a flyer, on their door. I also spoke to the contractors who are working down by the lake. They're working on the sewer line, and with the weather being the way it's been with the rain, the project has been delayed a few days. The project should be completed by this Thursday, which is April 17th. The borough is looking for, we're forming a committee for a comprehensive study for the parks. We have received a mini pros grant, so we would like to have at least 7 to 11 participants. They're looking for senior citizens, students, parents, etc. All those who are interested, please notify me at manager@ridleyparkborough.org. Also a reminder, work is starting tomorrow on the railroad crossing at Squatner Avenue, and that will be completed by Friday, April 18th. And as Councilor McGinley said, we will have trash collection this Friday, April 18th.
All right, thank you very much, Trish. At this time, we will move on to the solicitor's report. General?
Thank you, Mr. President. No report for this month.
Thank you very much.
There's one on.
It's not working.
All right, engineer's report, Charles?
Thank you, Mr. President. A copy of my report is on file. One thing I do want to mention is, it comes later in action items. We previously talked about the state has a PA small water and sewer grant for projects up to $500,000. It requires a 15% match from the borough. Recently, Delcor, which is the regional sewer authority, updated a comprehensive I&I study for the entire service area. And they've identified 4 areas of the borough that would qualify or classified as high priority areas. So I'm going to recommend that we apply for this PA small water and sewer grant for sanitary sewer rehabilitation in those areas in the full amount.
Is it, what we're applying for, just to clear, the study's already been done, this is actually do the repairs, correct?
This would be to do work.
Yeah.
Undefined work, but
All right, thank you very much, Charles. All right, at this time, we will move on to council business. It is an opportunity for any member of council, to discuss any topic of the borough that they so choose. Okay,
I do. So, we have a Eagle Scout project that's, on the verge of getting started. Katie Wells, decided to pick ABC Field for her project. She's going to, with assistance of other scouts, we're going to plant 15 trees up there. They're going to range from sugar maples, white flowering dogwood, bald cypress, pin oak, and a white oak. We went over and looked at it. It's not going to affect any of the ball fields where these are being planted. Her plan is wonderful. We had a lot of trees we lost up there. So for where she plans on putting them, some are going to be like where the cars come up from one street to basically block the street lights from maybe going. And she planned it out really well. And we're excited to get this started. The game plan is May 2nd, I think, is when they want to start this project. And we're excited. She's a go-getter, and I'm excited. It's another Eagle Scout project for this borough. And obviously, we have the 9/11 memorial. That's beautiful. It's just another one that's going to beautify our town, and I'm super proud to be, that she chose this. So I just want to.
all right, thank you very much, Mike. Kelly?
I just have a couple concerns regarding, the contract for the ununiformed
Teachers?
teamsters. Because I know there's a lot of verbiage in that contract that's incorrect, and it doesn't seem like this MOU is covering those things.
What specific?
Working hours, there's also verbiage on, what else it was, because I had a copy of it, but there's a lot of things in there that aren't.
So this is just the MOU. What I've actually asked them to provide, is a consolidated agreement with that, which will go on site. So similar to what we ran into with the CBA for the police, we have MOU after MOU after MOU, and no consolidated contract. I literally think in years past, the MOUs were literally written on a piece of paper, and done. So what I asked the foreman to do is get this MOU together for us to vote on, and then to take previous MOUs, have their attorney
condense it into a contract. We will then have our labor solicitor look at it side by side with what they're saying previous MOUs are, and our solicitors will determine what is an accurate consolidated contract.
Yeah, because the contract I have is from 2020.
Uh,
That's the last one that we have. Because there was another MOU in last year when we extended the year.
Yep.
So there hasn't been any since
There
then.
hasn't been an update on that. Yeah, given how long it took, to negotiate with them, which was a scheduling issue, not the borough's fault, I'll just leave it at that. I wanted to get this MOU voted on so that our labor solicitor could work with whatever condensed copy they come up with, and then we'll vote on ratifying a separate, consolidated agreement.
Can I go back in?
Yeah.
The motion to approve the resolution 2025-3, the small water and sewer grant, is that what Charles was just talking about? Okay, cool. Yeah, okay.
But I do have one more.
Yeah.
The hiring here for the temp.
Yep.
This wasn't done the way that most hirings are done. No one on council was notified that this was occurring.
So, yes, they were. So myself and Trish and Danielle spoke with her interviewer. We were looking for someone with a very specific skill set to fill in for Danielle while she's out on maternity leave. It was discussed with
Finance and Personnel. I had a discussion with Councilor Gear last Thursday, and I talked with Mike about it today.
Yeah, I wanted to say too, after talking to Dane about it, and I'll let you go back. I feel like it's imperative that we at least get somebody in there to learn what they have to learn in this short amount of time with Danielle, showing her some of the things that need to be done. And we need to make sure, because any moment, we could not have that experience in the office. So, I understand that normally if this was a full-time position, I would want it to come across us and us have a part of the process of the interview. But the fact that it's a temporary three-month position, I feel like it's a necessity, and we really will be doing ourselves a disservice if we don't put somebody in that position. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, and I understand the concerns that, Danielle will be leaving at some point. I just think that it should have been advised by all of council that this was a potential, and that we could go through the proper channels.
I just think that personnel's gonna hire them regardless of the
Of course they
interview
are, because
process.
they don't
So,
want the input from the rest of council.
well, no, even if we had input, the personnel does the hiring. It's not gonna come across to us. So I just feel like we're just delaying the inevitable, and let's just put somebody in there that's gonna know.
Yeah, but we wanna do it the right way. I mean, will this person be getting benefits?
No, it's not a position.
It's not a position.
Will she be getting sick or personal time?
No, it's not a position.
And what is the hourly rate? Will it be less than what?
That is being negotiated, but we have a number of lines.
And is the union okay with it?
The union's okay with it. So, all right.
I just think it should have been a little bit more transparent to the rest of the council.
Okay, duly noted. Anything else? All right, we will close council business at this time. We're gonna open up for public comment. Any member of the public, resident, or the borough, you get 5 minutes. Please come up to the podium, state your name and address, and address council.
Good evening, Mike Gale, 51 Collier Circle. The Borough Code requires that a summary of the results of the 2023 budget, that the results of the 23, that a summary of the results of the 2023 budget audit be published within 10 days of filing with the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. I don't think this has been done yet. Is somebody going to follow up? And put that in the
Yes,
paper?
so we spoke yesterday, via phone, yesterday afternoon. You alerted me to this, and then you looked up the code that you had mentioned. It It's actually the responsibility in the code of the auditor to do that. Because in our conversation we had with Mike, I don't remember the borough actually ever doing this. So we looked it up, it is the responsibility of the auditor to do this.
Okay.
So we are reaching out and questioning the auditor as to why they didn't do it, particularly after how late they were with this audit. So that question's hopefully gonna be answered. But in the meantime, today, when I met with the borough manager, I instructed her to put it in the paper. So she submitted it today, in front of me. So that will be taken care of, and we are going to find out why the auditor, the state borough code, did not follow through with it. But remember, if you remember our conversation, I was like,
And I just wanted to check out, just make sure, because sometimes I'm wrong, but, and I sent, it's been published in years prior,
Yep.
I didn't know who did it, but I knew that was.
yes, it's the auditor that's supposed to be doing it per the code, which is why I didn't recall us ever doing it.
Okay, great, thank you. Question about the bond ordinance. It's up for consideration for approval tonight, and the original bond was $340,000. And that, but this bond is a little less than that. And I think I was told at one point that that the reason for that was that there's a first payment was deducted from that 340. And I don't know what that means or why they're different. And I was thinking, well, maybe, I know the bank made an error or there's something going on with that. So I'm wondering if they made a first payment for us as a result of that, but the bond originally was $340,000
The starting
back
value is $327.
right, and the original bond was $340,000 back in 2021.
It was, yes.
And I don't think we paid any principal on that.
We may have paid a minimal amount, so we were doing,
Interest, right?
it was primarily interest. I want to say it was like 80-20 principal interest. So the way the original schedule was supposed to work, we had two general note obligations. We had the ongoing police one, and then in 2021, we did the late loan for $340,000. So the way it was supposed to work is, and I'm giving rough numbers here, and so don't quote me and hold me to this. I'm trying to remember the amortization schedule, but I believe the schedule was $11,000 going to the police loan through March 2024, and then $1,000 was going to the lake loan. I think it was 80-20 principal interest, so roughly $1,000, 800 interest, 20% principal. And then the police loan, as of April 2024, was supposed to be paid off. Then the payments were basically supposed to switch and continue, and then the principal and interest switched. So it went from 1,000 to roughly 11,000, with the majority of that being principal as opposed to interest. So we were likely paying a minimal amount of principal in there, but it was mostly the interest is what we were paying. Like I said, they screwed that
We
up.
didn't pay all that much, but,
Yeah.
okay, fine.
Yeah.
I have another question regarding the ordinance. In the ordinance, there's a section 3 that says the capital project being funded by this bond has an estimated useful life of at least 16 years. This project was originally for the dredging of the lake, and I'm not sure that the useful life of that dredging is 16 years. So I wrote down here, does this mean that the lake cannot be dredged for another 16 years?
I have no clue if that means it can't be dredged for 16 years. I doubt, and I'm not gonna offer legal opinion, bond counsel with those documents. That may have been the scope of the work that was put in.
Who wrote the document?
Our bond counsel. So
Oh,
we hired bond counsel. It was
Okay.
actually bond counsel, who fought for us in terms of negotiating with the bank to handle this. But that would have to be a question I'd have to go back and ask bond counsel.
Now, the fact that the full lake wasn't dredged, does that come into play as well? Like you only handled a certain section?
Yeah, I mean, we did up until the wide opening parts, we did from the basin to the wide opening part. So,
Any time off?
it's in like,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
Didn't you get a roof on that?
No, the roof was separate, so. Yeah, we use ARPA for the roof, and then,
Good evening, Ian Thurman, 419 Conway Street. I have a couple of questions regarding the 2023 audit that was presented last month, I guess. So on the balance sheet, the general fund balance in the general fund would be over $1 million. The deficit would be over $1 million without that transfer. So one additional problem is that this enterprise fund where the transfer came from, according to the audit, it doesn't look like there's enough assets to make that transfer. At the beginning of 2023, that enterprise fund only had assets of $120,000. But it's going to make a transfer of $750,000. Right now, it's not quite jiving.
I'll look, but you may be mistaken, that transfer, you may be talking about the TAN, I'm thinking?
No,
I'll look.
no, the TAN is completely separate. So at year end, in the deficit, at year end, December 31st, 2023, the deficit in the enterprise fund is $680,000. So I realize, I'm just bringing this to your attention now. I don't expect you to have an explanation.
Is the enterprise fund the sewer fund?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yes, so I believe, and again, I don't have the audit in front of me, but if you're talking about money coming in from the enterprise fund, which is where we put the sewer money, then that is very likely, and I do not have the numbers up in front of me, but like I did with Mike, I'm more than happy to sit down and have a phone call with him. But if it's coming from the enterprise fund, which is where we deposit the sewer money into the general fund, then that is in fact us moving the sewer fee money into the general fund to then pay the CDCA.
Well, on the surface, that makes sense. However, like I said, a transfer of $750,000 from the enterprise fund, while it has a deficit at the end of the year, doesn't
So I actually asked,
quite jive.
I asked the auditor because I had a conversation with Mike, and so I called him, and just a separate question that I had. Because when I looked at the numbers for what the deficit is for that enterprise fund, which we established as a sewer fund, it was showing, we ran a deficit on the sewer fund because we did not charge enough for the sewer, and we're working on these calculations, we're working our way through that. But what that is I asked, I said, why is it 640 when I'm looking at the math and I would say the deficit is roughly $363,000 for the year. He told me that it was cumulative. So that 640 isn't for 1 year, that's including past deficits, and that does not get wiped away until you start to run, obviously, a surplus. So,
like I said, if you look at the balance sheet, there's a transfer of money from the enterprise fund into the general fund, $750,000. It doesn't look like it was there to transfer. It's looking like a paper transaction that needs further explanation.
and I'll look into it, but what I'm explaining to you that I think
Is there a way to get this question to the auditors?
I'll ask the auditor tomorrow, it's not a problem.
Okay.
He's more than willing to speak with me as he did when I met with Mike. But what I think you're referencing is, again, us moving the sewer fee money that we collected to the general fund to then make that payment to the CDCA for our sewer fund.
Okay, so we'll have to see about that. Likewise, on the income statement, the enterprise fund
30 seconds.
had a deficit for the year of $400,000, which again is the sewer fund, as you're saying. But yet it was able to transfer $750,000, even though it itself had a deficit of $400,000. I realize you're going to look into that further. Let me see here. The adjustment to the other liabilities of $532,000 that reduced that. How is there a way to get a listing of what is included in those other liabilities? Boom, boom, boom. In other words, right now there's one number. What is it made up of? Where are those liabilities actually owed to? Is it 100% Prospect?
So, your time's up, I'll explain it to you. What we were carrying a very significant liability.
Over $1 million.
Yes, so what that was, We had a tax settlement with Prospect in 2017. This was one of the things I discussed on the phone with Mike. And basically, we book that as a liability of loss because we knew eventually we were gonna owe them a refund. So that first settlement, that liability is off the books. We've settled that, any refund is clear with credits. So all that was left from a liability standpoint is what we currently owed as of 2023. So how they got to that $532,000 adjustment was they took that down to what is currently owed to Prospect as of 2023, pre-settlement, pre-any of that, which was $411,000, assuming there was no settlement, assuming there wasn't a restructuring of all of that. So with that, I appreciate it. I will look into the transfer from the store funds. I'll be back to you.
Again, my question is, how can I get a listing of those liabilities at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year that make up those two figures? $1 million down to $500,000.
I will look into that for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You got it.
Look forward to the response.
Hi, Rich Kamer, 10 West Ward Street. About 12 years ago, my family, we bought our property, and as most people know, on 312 is one where house has been vacant for like 30 years, I don't know. The estate in January of 2022 sold to an LLC. My wife and I at the time we were a little excited. We're finally gonna not have this vacant home. It's been having problems next door to us. Well, the LLC brought in some really shady contractors with vans that prop ladders in the trees, swung chainsaws around. First tree came down on our kids' swing set. 2 days later, tree came down on our power line, so we were without power, only our house, for several days. Then the same contractor painted their own parking spot in the street, and when they got in trouble, they used paint thinner, and there was a river of paint thinner running down the street. So eventually, after we had to have code enforcement there pretty much every day, within 7 months, they turned around and sold to another LLC. They just left it vacant, sitting for the last several years, which grass grew tall, they did nothing. Now it's on its third LLC, and again, now they're doing work. They bought the property roughly a month ago. I know when we bought our property, it took over a year to do the restoration. We had to go through, building, all the different departments, including HARB. And HARB meets once a month. So I'm curious how, first of all, they were able to already have approvals from the borough, from HARB, to get their permits. I'm curious if they have their general liability insurance, do we have a copy of their work comp insurance? How many units are going in the building? How many parking spots are they approved for? We were pretty much blindsided by this because it's been sitting again. Now it's on its third LLC, and now apparently it seems like they're doing all this work. They've got guys who came home today, parked in the middle of the street, and they're having a little meeting. They couldn't even pull their vehicle over the side of the road. There's stuff from the building that's flying down the street because they don't have anything. They don't care. None of them do. And my wife smells pot from them, and nobody does anything, and that's where we're at. So, we love the community, but we're at the point now where we're just about ready to sell and move ourselves because we don't think that the borough really cares. I mean, for them to approve, if they have approved what's going on over there, that's sad. Otherwise, they need to be really looked at because this is a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have two quick questions about the abandonment ordinance. If it is passed, is it going to be according to a contract
mean, typically, I think the chief usually call a tow guy, right? Yeah? Yeah.
Would you be accepting bids for it, or bids for a contract to tow for you?
I mean,
We currently have, I think somebody already,
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Something quick. So, Trish Holsinger, 421 Styles Avenue. We have met with some of, and I mean my husband, my family and stuff, my neighbors. We've met with some of the neighbors over near Casey's. So we're still having an issue over there. You know, I did talk to Frank and his, I'm guessing secretary or whatnot, Tara. She did reach out to all of their vendors again about the trucks coming down, destroying the properties. One of the neighbors actually suggested perhaps maybe some residential only type signs can go up. And I think those things are pretty cheap and things that we can actually implement fairly quickly. So that way the chief can call someone and say, hey, you know, let's go give somebody a citation and bring some money into the borough. The second thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that we don't have a representative yet for the Historic Commission, even though I requested it back in January. But I do have an update in regards to the Ridley Park Historical Society, which is actually a fun thing, so let's, you know, and then I done something fun. So the Ridley Park Historical Society was just notified that we are the recipients of the 2024 Preservation Award, and that is given to us by the Heritage Commission of Delaware County, and we have been given this award for the group achievement category. So we do have a banquet that is coming up on May 4th, and Mr. Mayor, since you are Ridley Park in and of itself, we would be honored if you would attend the award banquet with us and be the recipient of the Preservation Award, because without the support from council and yourself and the prior borough manager, we wouldn't be recipients of this.
Go check your calendar, man.
We're going out for drinks. You don't have to drive, and I'll pick you up and drop you off.
I would need that.
You gotta run. I will call you with the details.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats, thanks for that too, thank you.
Sure.
I think, Chief, we already have signs down that say new trucks.
Yeah, I believe that's my question. We have an ordinance or a resolution, if we're gonna make it local resolution.
But is there already signs that say no truck? Further up? Okay. So it's not in the area where.
Well, if we already have a sign up, we just have it to a better location. We wouldn't need approval for that, just move it to where it's
Shouldn't be.
more visible before they enter the roadway, so maybe we can look into that, just have a sign. I mean, if it's already up and you just reposition it, I don't think that's an issue, assuming there's an ordinance that was passed and, it's not, but on my time.
Local traffic only, that's fine, but how do you truly police
Police
that?
it, yeah. Because I know that it's hard to police the no truck sign thing too, but at least it's maybe something that they will see and acknowledge. Oh, I shouldn't be up here. Yeah. Yeah. Hard situation.
Anyone else?
I just,
Going once?
sorry, Trish, Sunday, May 4th?
May 4th, yes, if that's Sunday, it's a
Okay,
Sunday.
okay, I'm just
We're still partying.
getting the mayor up to speed.
Anyone else? Going once? Twice? All right, we will close public comment, and at this time, we will move to the action.
Motion to approve March accounts payable in the amount of $374,714.50.
I will be the maker of that motion. Do we have a second? Second, Councilman McGinley. Comments and questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve March 18th, 2025 council meeting minutes.
Make a motion, Council Collins. Do we have a second? Second is Council Gear. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None approved, except for your roll call.
For the next one.
Motion, Danielle, roll call for comment.
Motion to enact ordinance number 2025-3, authorizing and approving, among other things, issuance of a general obligation bond, the maximum principal amount of $333,450.82 to refund the borough's outstanding general obligation note series of 2021 and acceptance of M&T's proposal to serve as purchaser of such a bond.
All right, so I will be the maker of that motion. Do we have a second? Second is Councilor Gear. All right, we will do a roll call as requested by bond council. Councilor Gear.
Aye.
Aye. Council President Collins. Councilor Collins.
Aye.
Councilor McGinley. Aye. Councilor Delesio.
Aye.
Motion to approve, motion to approve block party request for Friday Fest, formerly Third Thursday. The dates listed are 5/2, 6/6, 7/4, 8/1, and 9/5.
7-Eleven.
They're gonna use the rain date. Those are the dates that are on the ones listed.
All right, you make a motion. Make a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Councilor McGinley. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Motion to hire a temp while borough secretary is out on maternity leave.
I'll be the maker of that motion. Do we have a second? Second. All right, second, Councilor McGinley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, all opposed?
Yay.
Nay?
Nay.
Okay, one opposed.
Motion to approve ordinance 2025-02, abandoned vehicles.
Maker of the motion is Councilor Gear. Do we have a second? Second is Councilor McGinley. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve memorandum of understanding for Teamsters Local 312.
I'll be the maker of that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Collins. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve resolution 2025-3, requesting a PA small water and sewer program grant of $500,000. Yes.
Be the maker of the motion. I'll be seconds. Supposed to be out for the grants. Comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn, Councilor Gear, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everyone.